بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. We have reached the 70th Hikma, the 70th aphorism of the blessed collection of aphorisms of Sidi bin Ata'illah as-Sikandari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu wa nafa'ana bi-ilumhi fi ad-darain, ameen. And it states, من رأيته مجيبا عن كل ما سئل ومعبرا عن كل ما شهد وذاكرا كل ما علم فاستدل بذلك على وجود جهله. And so we use Thomas Cleary's translation this time. When you see anyone answering everything he is asked, expressing everything he witnesses, and stating everything he knows, you may infer ignorance in him thereby. So you could break this down summarize this by saying these are 3 signs of ignorance of the path. And of course, as we've seen throughout and we continue to reiterate, there is a specific application of this aphorism and all the others for people of the spiritual path, just as it also applies in general to all people. So it's amazing how there's multiple levels to this. And so the Imam is telling us something that we need to know. And essentially, it relates to speaking about things that we shouldn't necessarily speak about. And there is a shahwa, there's a desire to speak. Especially that if someone has a type of knowledge that other people doesn't have. Especially if by speaking about that knowledge, hearts are going to incline towards that person. There's a shahwa. When you say something that there's a desire that human beings have to captivate hearts. The nafs loves to have other hearts imprisoned, if you will, in love and connection to that person. And the great masters of this path, even though they were forced to emerge and take on students, they never saw any of their students as being their students. And we have these statements of those who came before us, is that were I ever to think that I am a sheikh for any one of my students, that I feared that I would be raised with Qarun. And even those that are forced to emerge, forced to bear the burden of tarbiyah and to raise individuals spiritually, is that they only do so because they've been commanded to do so. And they always observe the utmost adab. And it's similar to leadership in that if someone seeks leadership, they'll be left to themselves. And they're likely to get themselves in big trouble. But if someone's forced into a position of leadership, they'll be assisted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The asl and the foundation is we learn knowledge to put it into practice. And yes, we make the intention to benefit others, but within our circle of influence to the extent possible. Not seeking emergence in order to then benefit other people. That's a slippery, slippery slope. And especially in a time where we have our egos that's stroked in a number of ways that are unprecedented in human history. So this is right at the heart of what he wants to teach us. The importance of making sure to put everything in its proper place. And if we speak, not to speak from shahwat, desire. Speak because we're supposed to speak. Because that's the principled response to speak. And so let's look at some of the words of this blessed aphorism, which state, Man ra'aytuhu. And man, anyone, whoever, ra'aytuhu, that you see. So when you see anyone, And then there's going to be 3 different signs here, that things that we see in a particular person. Mujiban an kulli ma su'il. So ajaba yujibu is to respond or to answer a question, something that someone is asked about. An kulli ma, everything, ma su'il. Sa'alas to ask, su'ilas the passive tense. So answering everything he is asked. It's the first thing. So they're asked something and they answer. No matter what they're asked, they answer. The second sign, وَمُعَبِّرًا عَنْ كُلِّ مَا شَهَدْ, expressing everything he witnesses. Now the primary meaning here is in the spiritual path. Because as someone treads the spiritual path, things start to open up for them. They might have very powerful experiences. They might have very powerful dreams. They might witness certain things. Certain things might be unveiled to them. But this person, mu'abbiran kulli mashad, everything he witnesses, he just expresses it and tries to put it into words. And then by extension, you could say that people just speak about everything it is that they shahad in the most linguistic sense of the word witness or see. And that's a very basic, lower level of that. But the primary meaning of shahad here is that witnessing with the eye of the inner heart. And then the third side, وَذَاكِرًا كُلَّ مَا عَلِمْ. ذَكَرَ يَذْكُرُ is to mention. Here translated as to state. In stating كُلَّ مَا عَلِمْ, everything he knows. So he knows something, he just tells everybody everything he knows. And then so if we see those 3 things, then what can we come to the conclusion of? فَاسْتَدِلَّ استدل يستدل is to come to a conclusion, to infer something. What are we inferring here? فَاسْتَدِلَّ بِذَلِكَ. So you can infer as a result of those 3 signs that you've seen, عَلَى وُجُودِ جَهْلَةٍ. You can infer the existence of that individual's ignorance. And it's not in the sense that we're judging someone or even condemning someone. We need to be aware, though. Because if someone is just answering everything that they're asked, expressing everything that they witness, stating everything that they know, we need to be careful. If someone makes a mistake in something they mention in relation to the outward dimension of the sacred law, that's fairly easy to correct because it's a matter of the outward. But if someone states something about the unseen, or that something that relates to subtleties of the spiritual path that very few people know, that's significantly harder to correct. And this is why we always have to be on guard for charlatans. Now, we don't become so worried about this as that everybody that we see like, oh, maybe that's a charlatan, maybe that's a charlatan. Maybe we don't nor do we throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's always been ulama that have made mistakes in all of the various sciences. But part of the task of the scholar is to clarify, okay, what was wrong? Okay, that's clarified, and this is what's right. And likewise within the science of tasawwuf, there have been people who made false claims, and usually they get exposed, usually during their lifetime. And then there's some people who really lead other people astray. And this is why we have to be careful who we connect to and who our affiliation is with. We have to be careful, and there's signs that we want to look for. So these are some indications. Now, primarily here, yes, this is in a sense to protect us from who it is that we take from, but primarily this is about our own selves. This is a reminder, even though he's putting it in the phrasing as such that when you see anyone, then you may infer ignorance in him thereby. Really, first and foremost, this is something that we want to be careful of, and to make sure that we don't just answer everything that we're asked and express everything that we witness, if we witness anything, nor state everything that we know, and to guard ourselves from the shahwa of the tongue, the desire to speak, because there's something about the individual. even if they know something that's inconsequential, is that we like to express it. We like to express what it is that we know. And there's something that happens, and there's this, if you will, power relationship that relates to knowledge, is that when someone has knowledge, it leads to power. This is why we invest so much in the world, in knowledge, in knowing, and that the two paths to power and knowledge tend to be wealth and knowledge. But a'udhu billah, that's not something the true person seeks knowledge for. We seek knowledge to become abid, lowly servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we seek knowledge, and actually when we're truly seeking knowledge, the more that we come to know, the more that we come to realize we don't know. So we're increasing in knowledge, while simultaneously we're realizing how ignorant we actually really are. And then, as Imam Ghazali says, is that the greatest scholar in the world is the one who knows how ignorant he really is. So it's a station, actually, to know how incredibly ignorant we are. And that's the very end of knowledge, really. And the knowledge that Allah Ta'ala has given us the ability to know in relation to Him, which is the true and real knowledge, even though we'll never truly know Allah, it's the greatest gift of all. But that only comes when we learn sacred knowledge and put it into practice, and then understand all other types of knowledge from the lens of the sacred, and protect ourselves from their pull into everything that their underlying assumptions are calling us to. So this is very deep. And so if we look a little bit more in depth at this, what Ibn Ata'illah radiallahu anhum is expressing here is that if we see an individual answering everything he is asked and expressing everything that he witnesses, i.e., that he tastes, that he experiences, that internally, from various types of knowledge that are unveiled to him, or that the states that go along with knowing Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And then this person that states what he knows, this is a sign of ignorance. And then we're going to learn why that's the case. So the first one, mujiban an kulli ma sa'al. When someone answers everything he is asked. In a sense, one has to be very careful of trying to compete with Allah in relation to knowledge. It's a good thing that we want to know, but there's a very subtle desire in the human being to want to know everything. Just look at what's happening in nowadays. And this has always been there. And there's always been that pharaonic tendency, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la, I am your Lord Most High. And one of the slipperiest slopes is in relation to the attribute of knowledge. More so than even in some of the other attributes that human beings will attempt to, of course, never really compete with Allah for. But knowledge is one of those that it's a very slippery slope. Because on one hand, we're supposed to know. And on one hand, it's a good thing to want to know. But why do we want to come to know? And what do we want to come to know? And just look at the tendencies in our time now, where very sophisticated technology is being developed, where actually some of the most sophisticated forms of kufr ever are coming to the surface. Where some of these people, if you ask them, does God exist? They'll say, not yet. And they think that somehow you're going to be able to download your consciousness on the internet one day, and that through applied technology be able to attain levels of knowledge that no one else before has ever been able to attain. That somehow their technology is going to that make them that all-knowing. And there's some people who really believe this is not fake. There's people who really believe this. And they're increasing in number. And now we're just seeing the first trickles of it coming out to the masses. And if what we see coming out to the masses is, what do they have then? That how long has this technology really been around, and that what is available to people who are not from the masses? Anyhow here, but this is a demonic and pharaonic tendency to try to compete with Allah in relation to what He knows. And the human being, no matter what it is that we come to know, we realize that we're jahil. That subhanaka, that glory be to you, that we only know what you have taught us. We only know what you have taught us. That subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana. There is no knowledge that we have except that which you have taught us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Isra, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You have only been given a small amount of knowledge. قَلِيلًا. And think about everything that we can come to know. And people are so enamored by what science can come to know. And on one hand, it is amazing. Everything that we now can come to know through of the microcosmic world and the macrocosmic world, it's amazing in a sense, insofar as it's a part of Allah's creation. But all of that's in the sama dunya, all of that's in the terrestrial heaven, let alone what's in the first heaven, in the second heaven, in the third heaven, in the various degrees of existence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Imagine what our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows, is that he went beyond the Sidratul Muntaha, which represents the end of what human beings can reach in relation to what can be known. And he's the only one who went to the divine presence. SubhanAllah. And having said all of that, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And that all of the knowledge of all of the prophets combined is great as it possibly is all just that small amount compared to what our Prophet Muhammad was given. And then imagine that all of the knowledge of all of the awliya and the salihin, all of their degrees, compared to what the prophets were given. This is the way that it works. And I was just reading one of the definitions of a wali, a saint, a knower of Allah. And that there's the lower degree and there's the higher. The higher degree of wali is the one who, there were all of the ulama on the face of this earth to disappear, as that he could revive all of the ulum sharia. All of the science of the religion, he could revive them. And Sayyidina Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jalani used to say that I have the Bahr, the ocean of the sacred law on my right, and the ocean of spiritualities on my left, and I aghraf min iyya ma shit. I that dip in and take from whichever one that I want. And so it's amazing what the ulama and the awliya attain. But in the end, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. What they know only increases them in fear of Allah, in submission to Allah, in servitude to Allah, in being lowly before Allah. And one of the poets said, وَمَنْ كَانَ يَهْوَى أَنْ يُرَى مُتَصَدِّرًا وَيَكْرَهْ لَا يَدْرِي أُصِيبَتْ مَقَاتِلُهُ. And this translates as that whoever desires to be seen as in the front speaking, the one that people look at in the gatherings, and he dislikes the word I don't know, is that this is the point where his fatality lies. Your maqtal is when you are like wounded by an arrow, or in a modern context, a bullet that hits you in a vital organ. Right? If you arrow hits you in your arm, it's likely not going to kill you. But if it hits you here, hits you here, hits you here, you're in trouble. It's your maqtal. And so in other words is that the death blow to any human being is where we don't habituate ourselves to saying, I don't know. We should feel very comfortable saying, I don't know. And some of them were asked about beneficial knowledge, and they said, إن تعرف قدرك ولا تتعدى طورك, is that you know your limits and you don't exceed them. إن تعرف قدرك, you know your true worth, you know that what you can do and what you can't do, you know your limits. ولا تتعدى طورك, أي حدك. You don't go beyond your area. You don't go beyond your limits. You stay within them. And Imam al-Ghazali mentions in the Ihya that our righteous predecessors, one of them was asked about a masala, a particular question, about a particular legal matter. And they would tell the questioner to go to so-and-so. And they would go to so-and-so. And they'd say, go to so-and-so. And then that person would say, go to so-and-so. Until sometimes it would come back to the initial person that was asked. This is the way they were. And they lived in a society where there was multiple people that were able to answer questions. And of course, if there's no one else there to help someone with one's questions, if someone can't answer the question, they should. Or if they can partially answer the question, then they clarify. Well, this is what I know about that. The rest you're going to have to find out from someone else. But if they don't know, you have to say, I don't know. And I can help you though by sending you to so-and-so or suggesting so-and-so or read such and such. And look at this beautiful example. This is the way these people were. Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, the Imam of the blessed city of Medina Munawwara, the Dar al-Hijrah, which is the abode of migration. Is that on one occasion he was asked 32 questions, and he answered 3. So just imagine like in our retreats or like our Q&A or that our interactive sessions, 32 questions. And on 29 of them, we said, I don't know. I'm not sure. Imagine people start thinking, like, just wasting my time. What am I here for? Why are we even putting on this retreat? This person doesn't even know what he's talking about. Right? I'm going to ask ChatGPT. He's going to know better. Right? 32 questions. He responded to 3 by saying, La adri, I don't know. And then the one asking the questions said to him, what am I going to tell people? I mean, maybe that he was asking on behalf of some other people, or that he was going to mention some of what Imam Malik mentioned. And then Imam Malik said to that person that قُلْ لَهُمْ قَالَ مَالِكْ لَا أَدْرِي, tell them that Malik said, I don't know. Allah, look at that. So this is how these people were. Like he's saying that like people are going to say that you only answered 3 of those 29. And who knows what's behind that? Maybe they're going to think that you're not a true scholar. Maybe they're going to think this. Maybe they're going to think that. All this waswasa from shaitan comes in about our reputation, what people are going to think about us, and so forth. That's why تَفَقَّهُ قَبْلَ أَن تَصَوُّدُوا, is that learn your deen before you're in a position of leadership, because it is hard when people are looking at you to say, I don't know, if you really don't know. And people have unrealistic expectations usually. But he said, tell them that Malik says, I don't know. And he was perfectly comfortable with that. But this is why Allah placed so much barakah in their ilm, in their knowledge. And one of the things that you realize is, yes, on one hand, we always want to expand what it is that we know. But we must approach knowledge from the standpoint of putting it into practice, what it is that we do know. And at the same time, not biting off more than we can chew. Starting and putting everything in its proper place, and learn the most important aspects of knowledge, the most important aspects of a particular subject. And then moving on. And this is why there's such a sir, a secret, in our textual tradition of mutun that, like the word itself suggests, are the backbone of knowledge. And someone wants a basic metin to explain the most complex scenario in the modern world. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But as we were sitting with the Hakim this morning, who he notices is when he teaches medicine, that there is this tendency to want to learn so much so quickly. And he said to them, if you're learning the Arabic language, do you think that you can understand complex grammar, complex sentence structure, if you don't know anything about the language? No, what do you have to do? You have to begin with alif, ba, ta, jim, ha. There's 28 letters. Let's first know what those 28 letters are. And then guess what? There's a second step. Those letters can be inflected. So it's ba, bi, bu, ib, ta, ti, tu, it. And then guess what? They can combine with other letters. So then you have to learn how to combine them. And then you have to spend probably about 2 months learning how to connect the letters and then start to read them. And you have no idea what you're reading, except maybe a few of the letters that you can understand that are like pictures by pointing. هذه وسادة, هذا منديل, أنا رجل. Remember that, Azam? From Kitab al-Suwar, the book of pictures. That's how you have to begin. And then look, ask the second year Arabic students. You're just finishing year one. You have a long way to go. You spent a whole year learning the language.